He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past. He who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the past. That was a quote at the start of the movie 1984, made in 1984 in Britain, based on the book 1984 by George Orwell. So that was a quote, and it basically is explained in the book, where he talks about how the system of Oceania's government, Big Brother, called Big Brother, controls the entire information in the country. And this makes sense because George Orwell was a propagandist for BBC and worked in the secret intelligence too for the country. MI something. So George Orwell knew that and explained how by controlling all the history of the country that they lived in, the people, oh my gosh, I think the quote was, "He who controls the past controls the present, and he who controls the present controls the future." All right. But the idea is basically the same. Where, if you tell people a certain history, then you can control where they're gonna, what they're gonna believe, and therefore you're gonna control what how they react. So that was the point of that quote, and that's why I'm reading this book, The Millennium, by Jacques Attali, the French advisor and president of bank of something or the other. But yeah, we're basically going back to 1990 to see some predictions for the new millennium, and we're seeing how many are coming true and how close his predictions are to reality and what the future may hold. And to just get a good picture of where we are presently, because like I said, if you understand the past, or like this man obviously understands the past, so he can predict the future and even control the future as he's doing as the advisor and the bankster and so forth. So anyway, let's keep going where we left off after a smoke break. So yeah, speaking of going back in time and reading older books, I just am so marveled by how much truth is present about our reality today in books that were written hundreds of years ago. In fact, it seems like if the book wasn't written less than 100 years ago, it's not going to be very accurate, and it's not going to be as insightful about the condition of our current society. Because they say history repeats itself, and those who don't know history are doomed to repeat all the worst things that happen in history. So by teaching you this, I'm trying to get you more educated about the real world that you live in. This book is not red in its cover for any reason. This is basically the red pill right here. The red pill called Millennium, by this man. And yeah, so if you know the present, you can control your future. And To know your present, you have to know your past. Oh. Sorry, ass shit. Yuck. Nasty. Alright, good time. Excuse me, hold on that. This evolution we were talking about, will disturb present-day economic and national security arrangements and will alter the rules of geostrategy. For in the aftermath of the ideological hostility of the Cold War, geography will once again impose its laws on history. For the past half-century, the world order has been organized around what might be described as a pyramid and two pillars. I wish I had a dollar bill right now. The pyramid is the shape taken by the eighth market form of the order of money. So money is represented in that $1 bill in the form of that pyramid with the all-seeing eye. At its summit is the United States. So the all-seeing eye represents the dollar, according to his interpretation, with all other nations arranged in descending and hierarchical fashion around the American peak. The dollar ruled international currency. American popular culture reigned supreme. This basic fact has been the starting point for all thought and theory about the modern political economy. Excuse me. The two pillars, vestiges of the order of force, have been the two principal nuclear powers, the United States and the Soviet Union. So the two pillars near the pyramid represent the US and the USSR, who imposed their views on their respective alliances and were arbiters of regional conflicts. This basic fact has been the starting point for all thought and theory about contemporary military strategy. So after USSR collapsed, we saw how America took over the job of policing the whole world now, not just certain spheres. Today, this structure is dissolving before our eyes. The pyramid is changing its summit. One of the pillars is crumbling. America's position as the peak is under severe strain. In Eastern Europe, the order of force is given way to the order of money. These developments are profoundly changing the nature of global economic structure and military conflict. Soon, one will no longer be able to speak strictly of north-south or east-west. Yeah, Tupac and Biggie died before the millennium. The old Cold War categories no longer pertain, okay? So, a different world. And it's called The Strongest Supremacy. That's the title. It would be, fucking bitches. It would be foolhardy. Oh, shut up, doggy dog. It would be, now we got a fucking PC bitch right here, man. Shut up, motherfucker. It would be foolhardy to believe that either the utter demise of the United States or the complete dissolution of the Soviet Union are irreversibly established. It is only certain that the new center, in the sense given to this word in the preceding chapter, will consolidate somewhere in the two dominant spheres, Europe or the Pacific Rim, and the Eastern Europe will rejoin the market economy. For the rest, everything depends on the way that changes are managed. The United States may host the center once again, but this would require a tremendous Herculean effort of national will in order to effectively harness the country's assets. That effort, in the degree that is required, will be difficult. If America's economic decline hardens into reality, Europe will suffer. But if Western Europe is able to link Eastern Europe with its development, and integrated Europe has a chance to assume the role of the center of the world economy. It will then be able to develop as the most populated, the richest, and the most creative center in the world. If not, the new center will likely be Japan. We know it is China, for that island nation combines the necessary conditions for attracting global monetary, industrial, even cultural power. Japan has several advantages over America and Europe. The mass production of high-tech consumer products. There's coherent compact of state and industry with a common will to take, maintain, and expand market share. There is an indigenous cultural tradition of self-mastery and obsession to create consensus amongst its people. And finally, there is enormous influence over a hinterland, which is already advanced. These two emerging contenders for the role of the center of the ninth market form have embarked on a vigorous competition. The stakes are high, for they are nothing less than the economic and political mastery of the world. Neither has yet triumphed over the other. Inside each of these competing spheres, one can see a considerable growth in trade and merchandise, in people, in information. This interior growth is even more rapid than that of external trade. Each sphere forms a homogeneous, closed group. And each, the principal economic power, China on one side, the EC, Euro on another, is moving ahead of the principal military power, US on one side and Soviet on the other. A process of increased integration and intensified rivalry is shaping this evolution. To understand where this double movement might lead, and which of these two spheres will ultimately dominate the other, it is useful to clarify certain facts and trends present in each of them. By Pacific Sphere, I mean the group formed by the Pacific Rim countries, Oceania, the rapidly developing countries of East Asia, from Japan all the way to Hong Kong, and all the nations of North and South America. I do not include China or Vietnam. This enormous region has become a place of economic explosion. Populations and production are growing rapidly, and transportation grids are multiplying, and internal commerce is growing more rapidly than trade with the rest of the world. We are witnessing the formation of a truly integrated economic sphere, power shifting from one coast of the Pacific to the other. So how true is that, huh? Now, I don't know if Japan or China is the real big dog, but China does have an impressive military and economy and population. So now we are on page 40. However, there are important conditions that any candidate for the center of the next world economy must fulfill. Alright, Japan might find difficult to meet because social values need to be changed and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to leave off at page 40. and return with the next video. Until later, keep popping them pills.